standing in one of the more extreme fields that we're having to deal with, and actually this is typical of a whole raft of fields that we're having to deal with in this area this year. This one's just come out of stored cabbage, and for this area this is not that unusual in the kind of situation that we're now having to tackle. We've got several distinct issues. Wheelings are the main ones, where trailers, because of the kind of harvesting approach we have to take on these crops, which is lifting or cutting rows, we get quite intense wheelings on the fields. So thought processes around tyres and tyre pressures is one of the things we can do to alleviate any compaction that we put in. And the fact that we have to harvest these fields when the crop is ready to harvest, either to go to market or go into storage, almost regardless of the weather. And the kind of conditions we see now in years like we've just had are typical of what happens. So we've got heavy wheelings where trailers have gone up and down. We've got light wheelings where tractors have just gone once across the field at an angle. And then we've got down the rows which have not seen any trafficking. So I'm going to dig 3 soil conditions out, lay them out so that we can have a good inspection of what's going on, again so that we can make a plan of how we best tackle the cultivation sequence, get these fields back into best health as fast as possible. So I've got the 3 soils laid out from the different areas in front of me. The deep wheelings, which have been full of water for some considerable time now, you can see they're really starting to go black on the surface. Absolutely stink, they're stagnant. Where the water is sitting there with rotting cabbage leaves in those wheelings for a considerable length of time. So the top is very slurry-like, very difficult to compact, because actually as you run a machine through that, it's just going to squid sideways away from the tyres. So this is almost too liquid to now compact, but obviously it's completely structureless, saturated all the way through, and will cap as that dries. Water's never going to passage through it, water will only evaporate off the top. So we need to open that up as it dries a little bit to get water to passage down through it. As we go lower in the soil profile, on this particular bit of the soil, we can actually see that it is compact. So that's quite massive, there's no roots through it, but it is dry inside. So very compact, pretty structureless, but inside it is actually dry. However, it's wet enough that trying to put a subsoiler through here is not going to shatter that soil. We really need to do that when it's much drier next summer, but certainly it would be justified to put a subsoiler through this field, whereas in the maize field we looked at, it would not be, and actually where those cover crops were, it would not be the right thing to do, put a subsoiler through. Much shallower cultivation in there, or just ploughing would sort those out. But in here, a subsoiler is probably going to be needed later on next summer. In the meantime, I think we've got to try and level these fields off a bit before we can get them to plough. So a tine, shallow working tine, maybe 4 or 5 inches through here, would just allow the water to get into this area and move down through. We go to the soil in the centre here, which is out between the rows where it hasn't been wheelinged, and we can see straight away that this soil is just completely different. It's fizzing with worms everywhere through it. It's in a nice friable condition. It's moist all the way down through the profile. There's no water being held up on the top. Again, because the top of the soil is being protected by all these old cabbage leaves, and the water is not hitting the surface of the soil. So we can see that the surface of the soil, much like the cabbage ex-Brussels sprout plots we were looking at, is full of holes, roots in here. It's nice and open, water can infiltrate through the surface of the soil. Then if we come across to the last bit, which was the shallower wheeling, we can see that it's in similar condition on the surface to where we put the deep wheelings in. So it's going black and slimy, it stinks, it's very wet. But below that, the soil is much drier, but nowhere near as compacted as where we've got the deep wheelings. We've still got roots running through this soil here, so it's wetter, softer, much more open, So nowhere near the same level of work needed to sort this bit out as there is in the deep wheelings. So the deep wheelings are the bit to concentrate on. They should be timed to around 5-6 inches right now, just to get water away, level the field off, and then plough. Next summer, we should be planning to come into this particular field with a subsoiler correctly set, having inspected it with a spade, so that we ascertain exactly how deep that compaction is, rather than just go as deep as we can, and get that machine set right to get this soil back in good heart. But hopefully we've demonstrated as well the importance of growing crop. Actually, at the moment, we have these cut cabbages starting to reshoot. So they are physically still growing within this field. If they're growing within this field, they're putting roots out, they're extracting moisture, and they're stabilising the soil. So at the moment, this old cabbage crop is actually performing a useful role for us. And given that this field is so wet, it's going to take some time for the surface to dry before we can get on with the tractor and even put a shallow tine through it. So we shouldn't be panicking about getting rid of crop residue at the moment when it's actually working for us in a positive way.